Diseases that give a respite from mobilization. What diseases are contraindications for service? When does a conscript get a reprieve from it, and when is he recognized as fit with restrictions? The answers to these questions are spelled out in the Regulations on Military Medical Examination, approved by the decree of the Government of the Russian Federation dated 04.07. 2013 and 565 ed. dated 29.06. 2022 in the section Schedule of Diseases. The Schedule of Diseases provides for the following categories of fitness for military service. A. Fit for military service. B. Fit for military service with minor restrictions. B. Limited fit for military service. G. Temporarily unfit for military service. D. Not fit for military service. If a disease of an organ or system of organs leads to a violation of the function of another organ or system of organs, an expert opinion on the category of fitness for military service is issued according to the relevant articles of the Schedule of Diseases. When examining citizens, in addition to the research methods given in the Schedule of Diseases, it is allowed to use more informative methods. The following abbreviations are used in the Schedule of Diseases. IND. The category of fitness for military service is determined individually. A2, B2, 3, 4 is an indicator of the purpose for military service. Schedule of Diseases. 1. Infectious and parasitic diseases. 2. Neoplasms. 3. Diseases of the blood, hematopoietic organs and individual disorders involving the immune mechanism. 4. Diseases of the endocrine system, eating disorders and metabolic disorders. 5. Mental disorders. 6. Diseases of the nervous system. 7. Diseases of the eye and its auxiliary organs. 8. Diseases of the ear and mastoid process. 9. Diseases of the circulatory system. 10. Respiratory diseases. 11. Diseases of the digestive system. 12. Diseases of the skin and subcutaneous tissue. 13. Diseases of the musculoskeletal system, connective tissue, systemic vasculitis. 14. Diseases of the genitourinary system. 15. Pregnancy, childbirth and the postpartum period. 16. Consequences of injuries, poisoning and other effects of external factors. 17. Other diseases. 19. Consequences of injuries, poisoning and other effects of external factors. Unfit for military service are those who have received head injuries with consequences in the form of a foreign body in the cranial cavity, a defect of the skull bones of more than 40 sq/cm replaced with plastic material, or a defect of more than 10 sq/cm not replaced with plastic material, as well as defect and deformations of the maxillofacial region not replaced with transplants, ankylosis of the temporomandibular joints, false joints of the lower jaw, contractures of the maxillofacial region in the absence of the effect of treatment, including surgical, or refusal of it. If the defect of the skull bones is less than 10 sq/cm, it is not replaced by plastic material, or a defect of less than 40 sq/cm is replaced by plastic material. The person is recognized as fit for service with restrictions, category B, and if he received linear fractures of the bones of the arch and, or, the base of the skull without disruption of the functions of the central nervous system, he is recognized as fit for service with minor restrictions, category B. Consequences of fractures of the spine, trunk bones, arms and legs, fractures of the pelvis, shoulder blade, collarbone, sternum, ribs, humerus, radius and ulna, femoral neck and femur, tibia and fibula, patella and other bones, with a significant impairment of functions, grounds for declaring a person unfit for service. If the same problems are accompanied by moderate or minor impairment of functions, the Commission recognizes a person fit for service with restrictions, category B. Category B is suitable with minor restrictions for those who have the consequences of compression fractures of the vertebral bodies without deformation and dysfunction of the spine, non-removed metal structures after osteosynthesis of bone fractures, and fused isolated fractures of individual pelvic bones without deformation of the pelvic ring do not prevent military service. If, at the time of conscription, a person requires surgery to remove a pin, plate remaining in the long bone after the fracture has been fused, a conclusion is issued on temporary unfitness for military service for 6 months. Injuries to the internal organs of the thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity and pelvis, traumatic pneumothorax and hemothorax, injury to the heart, lungs, gastrointestinal tract, liver, spleen, kidneys, pelvic organs, other abdominal organs, multiple severe trauma. The consequences of operations for diseases of these organs become the basis for obtaining a white ticket. The category of validity B is given to people with the consequences of wounds, injuries and operations that preserve the functions of the affected organ, even though they are violated. For example, after surgery on the bronchopulmonary apparatus, respiratory, pulmonary, insufficiency of the E degree persists. In the absence of one kidney, the other works normally. The penis is absent to the level of the coronal furrow. After removal of the spleen, lung lobe, resection of the stomach, kidney or other organs, minor clinical manifestations persist. If there are no violations of the function of the affected organ after injury or surgery, the shelf life category or B is established. The consequences of injuries to the skin and subcutaneous tissue are released from service. They are expressed by massive keloid, hypertrophic scars in the neck, trunk, arms and legs, soldered to the underlying tissues, ulcerated or easily vulnerable with unsatisfactory results of treatment or refusal of it. Category D can also be established because of the condition after deep burns with an area of 20% or more of the skin surface or complicated by amyloidosis of the kidneys, when these scars significantly restrict movement in the joints or interfere with wearing military uniforms, shoes or equipment. If all the above-mentioned pathologies, as well as the consequences of deep burns of 50 or more % of the surface of the skin of the leg or the consequences of deep burns with plastic surgery of more than 70% of the surface of the skin of the hand moderately or slightly restrict movement in the joints or make it difficult to wear military clothing, shoes or equipment, then it is allowed to serve with restrictions. Category B. Among those who have been poisoned with medicines and biological substances, who have suffered from the toxic effects of substances, mainly non-medical purposes, exposure to external causes, radiation, low, high temperatures and light, increased air or water pressure and other external causes in which there are clinical manifestations, there are absolutely no fit for military service. They can get either the shelf life category D or B. Temporary functional disorders of the musculoskeletal system, connective tissue, skin and subcutaneous tissue after the treatment of diseases, wounds, injuries, poisoning and other external factors give a delay depending on the condition at the time of examination. In case of residual phenomena after acute exogenous effects and intoxication, the examined persons are recognized as temporarily unfit for military service for 6 months. In the future, the category of their fitness for military service is determined depending on the degree of restoration of the functions of damaged organs and systems. 20. Insufficient physical development. The diagnosis of insufficient physical development, in which the body weight does not reach 45 kg and height up to 150 cm, is the reason for the mark in the military ticket category B, that is, fit for service with restrictions. If this diagnosis was made for the first time during the initial registration for military service, then the military liable person can receive a postponement for a period of 12 months. If a person has a body weight of 45 kg or more and a height of 150 cm, he has good physical development and a proportional physique, he is recognized as fit for military service. 21. Inesis will not convince the Military Medical Commission to release from military duty. Those suffering from nocturnal urinary incontinence receive an expiration date category B, but first they are sent for inpatient treatment. If it is successful, then there are no restrictions to the service. 22. Speech disorders. A high degree of stuttering, covering the entire speech apparatus, with respiratory disorders and neurotic manifestations, other speech disorders that make it incomprehensible, provides a limited category of fitness for service, B. But the conclusion on the category of fitness is made taking into account the ability of the person being examined to perform the duties of military service. Moderate stuttering and other speech disorders that make it insufficiently intelligible do not prevent a person from being fit for military service without restrictions. Moderate stuttering is considered only a delay in pronunciation, stumbling at the beginning of a phrase, and its continuation is pronounced in one breath, freely or slightly slowly, but without repetition.